I remember sitting down with you and watching the very first episode. And like, well, there's this new Star Wars show about the Mandalorian. I was like, okay.
Baby head,
and then
baby head.
You get the cutest little merchandising opportunity in the world pops into our lives. There you go.
And you only get this. First episode, you that's it. Not even an ear.
Hello and welcome to Renegades of the Podcast, a monthly podcast for all of the aliens, hosted by us, Unheard, Sirens Incorporated. I am Remy.
I am Juliet.
That's right, and this is our monthly podcast. We are a husband and wife duo, and we make pop music from an alternate universe, which right now sounds a bit like synth pop, mixed with a little bit of synthwave and retrowave, but we experiment. We like to mix genres, so we like to keep people on our toes. But anyway, we've been outsiders, we've been nerds, we've been, that our entire lives. And this is our podcast where we talk about music and sci-fi and fantasy and a little bit of pop culture and art and things that, everything that goes into what inspires us to make music. And we thank you guys so much for joining us. Mm-hmm. This is a big one. This is a big episode. This is a big one because this
worked our way up to it. We did our year in the
review.
review.
We did our year in review.
So that's good.
We got that out of the way.
We did an album review of Dummy, my top album of all time by Portishead. That was also big for me. That was
a fantastic episode with a fantastic story of Beth Gibbons. You should check out that episode if you haven't. And also, if you haven't heard our music before, again, we are musicians. You should definitely check out some of that.
It's not about either or. It's about something more. Transcend this claim. Release the pain. Leave duality behind.
For the YouTube version.
Starts with the music, but it also has philosophy and culture and fashion and film and identity and, striving and yearning for a better world and being really frustrated with the one that we have and all the things that help us think about what is and what has been and what could be as human beings. And we turn all of that into our music and into our music videos that we put a lot of thought into our lots of music videos. And we encourage you to check it out on all the places music and videos are available because this is what we're all doing. We're all digesting our experience in this world, and then hopefully we're able to offer something as a result of what we've taken in. We give back, so it's just that sort of exchange. And this podcast is a part of kind of honoring all of these influences that help us be the people that we are and create the art and the work that we create and create the identities and the selves and the personas and the, the outfits, the fantasy, the illusion, the pretend that's better than the real, that becomes the real. They can become the real. So all of this comes from the things that we're reviewing on this podcast. So you stay with us.
First, just a couple of things. First of all, it's June, so happy Pride Month, everybody. Woot woot. Gotta love the Pride, And
congratulations
both queers,
to
so
all of the new Pride events that
that's right.
Fall 2023,
it's
their
awesome.
First year. And congratulations, it's if your 50th year, or 5th, or 15th. But if it's your first year, fuck yeah. Go you. You're brave. You're awesome. We are with you at every one of these events in spirit.
We bow to you.
Be strong, be safe, be well. Thank God for you. And yay for Pride Month, and yay for new Pride events.
Yeah, if that's one good byproduct, I guess. Byproduct. We're both bi. If that's one good byproduct of the stupid bigotry that's been going around, is that Pride has been kind of
we have to come out of the shadows
as a result, as to counteract that, which is great.
Yeah,
but also,
and brave because it's
it
contested to be ourselves and to love.
Very important.
And accept love. If everybody's consenting, who cares?
Exactly.
Love who you love the way you want to love.
But also, updates as far as, a very smaller update as far as our world. But if you look around, if you watch the podcast before, if you look around, we've got a few new set decorations I put up recently. It's right, a few items that I got from GalaxyCon, and art piece that was gifted to me by a good friend, and we have Lilu. We have the Fifth Element right here. Fifth Element. Supreme Being. Right there over my shoulder. So
also our most recent Halloween costumes.
Yes.
Lilu and Corbin.
Mm-hmm. Which will be resurrected.
Also our first podcast episode.
That's right.
We reviewed the Fifth Element.
That was our second one, yes.
But we recorded it in Cozumel, Mexico, on our porch as the sun is setting. So if you haven't gone back and seen that episode, go check out our movie review episode and songs and music. We did other things too.
That's right.
In the episode 2. That was awesome.
That was a good one. Yeah. And so then like I alluded to before, let's get right into it. This is a topic we've been, that for some reason we haven't done. We knew we'd do it eventually, but it was one of those things of like, I mean, we'll get into the reasons and stuff like that, but like, it's a big topic. I think I would safely say that it kind of informs both of us as far as who we are. It is like deeply ingrained in both of our DNA. I am, of course, talking about the Star Wars, the property, the franchise, the myth created by the one and only George Lucas, gifted to the world in 1977. That it's everywhere now, and it's like I said, I do not know who I would be without Star Wars. I just it is a huge.
I can't imagine it either.
And mostly on this podcast so far, we've been covering stuff. At least this has been mostly new to me, but like stuff that's like a little bit more. I want to say like fringe, but stuff that's like a little bit more of the moment. But like Star Wars, it's not a topic I have to research too much because like he's been
researching it since he was 10 years old.
Since about like 10 or 11, I've been using maybe way too much of my brain power thinking. And
I thought I was a really huge Star Wars fan, and that I knew a whole lot about Star Wars. Like I thought that. I used to believe that. And then I met him.
Then you met me. Exactly.
And then I saw the things he was watching with all the YouTubers commenting on every minute detail and shot and angle and effect and character name and plot point and extra and costume. And I was like, I did not know. I did not know how deep the fandom could go. I just have like infinite love in my heart for the world of Star Wars, and I've watched it so many times, the original trilogy, and have watched not everything animated that's ever been done, but every feature film and all of the shows in live action mode that have been come from the world of Star Wars. I've seen all of that.
Yeah, it's like.
But still, the depths of fandom are impressive.
The depths of fandom, like again,
so impressive.
Again, me personally, I got into it when I was like 10 or 11. This would have been okay. So I'm gonna date myself. We're gonna date ourselves today. You are gonna find out just how long we've been on this planet.
20.
We're not 20 exactly. I'll put it to you this way: when I first got into Star Wars, it was there was only the original trilogy, and it was on VHS. So yes, we're talking. The mid-90s here, people, So I was born just after the original movies came out, so I wasn't old enough to have seen any of them in the theater, but I'm that second generation of Star Wars. I have delineated it in my brain. I think there's like 5 generations of Star Wars fans. There's those who saw the original trilogy in the theaters. There's those like me who kind of grew up in the wilderness years, like watching the original trilogy on VHS. And if you wanted new Star Wars stuff, you had to read like the novels, the Thrawn novels. You had to read that supplementary material in order to get any sort of idea of maybe what Luke, Leia, and Han were doing after the original trilogy. And then you heard whispers in the ether that maybe George Lucas was working on a prequel trilogy about Anakin Skywalker and young Obi-Wan Kenobi. You kind of heard maybe that was going to happen, but we didn't know. And then in 1999, sure enough, the prequel trilogy happened. And I have fond memories of going to see. I have fond memories of going
standing
to see all
in
those
line.
Movies. Yeah. Actually, before we get into that, what is your earliest memory of Star Wars?
All right, so my earliest memory of Star Wars is from when I'm 4 years old in my kindergarten class, because they started me in kindergarten when I was 4, so they sort of skipped me pre-K. And we played Star Wars every single day. Every single day.
Nice.
And there's only one female character in the movies.
Right.
And my first best friend from school, her name was Lizzie. She was wonderful, and I adored Lizzie, but she was more petite, and I was more tall, even though she was older. I was always the tallest, even though I was the youngest in my grade throughout. In graduated high school, same thing happened as when I was 4. So they wouldn't let me be the girl because I was too tall to play the girl, and there was a much more petite brunette there. She could even do her we would both have long pigtail hair, and then we could whip it around and make Leia buns.
Right.
But she was deemed to be more fit for the part, and so I was constantly cast as the Wookiee. I don't know why they would not cross-gender cast amongst our 4 and 5-year-old crew.
I guess,
but I always had to be the Wookiee, and so I played Chewbacca a lot, and I was very pissed about that as a child. I was like, I'm not the Wookiee, but now I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll be the Wookiee. I love the Wookiees. Like, we had a surprise Star Wars themed birthday party and gig in a huge park where we'd rented a shelter for his birthday like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That his bandmates from his former band, Butterfly Vendetta, had set up. They knew they were playing a gig in the park outside, and that we were going to have like a picnic shelter and that sort of thing. People can grill and picnic and have all the things. But they didn't know it was also going to be like a birthday celebration. I don't know. Did you know it was going to be Star Wars themed?
Yeah, I knew.
Star Wars
definitely
themed.
knew because I dressed for it.
You dressed for Star Wars themed, but there are aspects that I was not supposed to tell you. But I dressed as a Wookiee assassin. But I was like a human who had been adopted by the Wookiees, and so I considered myself to be tribe Wookiee, but like person body, human body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like I went as a Wookiee assassin, and I had like big fuzzy boots, like big knee-high fuzzy black boots, and so now I've embraced my Wookiee nature, but that's my earliest memory is like getting passed over in the role of the female, which I feel like kind of happened throughout my childhood and adolescence. I was always a little bit too masculine, too tall, too active, too athletic. So I was therefore cast as a creature, which was also not the first or only time that would happen. It's like, well, you can't be a boy because girls can only play girls, but you don't seem like a girl, so you can be the creature.
I think a lot of those rules are out the window.
I know. I think kids don't have that as strong anymore. But just, for all the things that we're reviewing today in the episode with Star Wars, and then later we're going to talk about a really cool pop artist named Sophie. And so we are bi and, sort of pan, omni, sexual and everything, LGBTQ,
gender
fluid,
gender fluid, I would say. And we embrace all of it. So just in honor of all of that, my earliest Star Wars memory actually relates deeply to that theme of gender and identity and playfulness and taking the world on. I don't remember that I saw it in the theater. If I did, I was so tiny. I definitely, when the special editions came out in 97, that was like the first time I'd seen them on the big screen, and that was a big deal. That was a huge deal. Like, they came out like
I don't remember, but I just remember that we had everybody had lightsabers, everybody had all the toys. I still have my very original Leia, and she is a little bit hot pink around the edges because I played with her in the bubble bath all the time, and she got discolored from my Mr. Bubble. Nice. And she is on our mantelpiece next to an original 1977 edition.
But so then we get into kind of like the next generation, the third era of Star Wars, I like to say, just after the wilderness years when the prequels were coming out. And like I said, I have fond memories of going to see those movies. When I saw them, I liked them. I liked that we were getting new Star Wars, and I was here for it. I came out of episode 1 going, that was good, but there was way too much Jar Jar in it, was really my only complaint. And then like episode 2...
I was like, why was there a 1 hour pod race? Did they have no plot? What was happening? Like, why?
It was a good
why
scene.
Did I have
it was a good scene, but it did go on a bit long, but like...
It was sort of like the Matrix 2 fight on the bus with the building, the highway.
Right. Sure.
But that was awesome. And then the pod race was like,
sure, yeah.
I was deeply disappointed in all three of them. I could not have been more underwhelmed by prequels 1, 2, 3.
I will say, like,
he had to force me to watch them for the second time
I
ever.
had to watch them again. Yeah, I know.
Which you forced me to watch them 3 times.
I remember the discourse.
Like,
I thought I liked them, but like I knew they kind of had flaws here and there. It was like there were some wonky moments and like what was up with that dialogue here. But then I go on message boards on the internet. It was all message boards then. It wasn't Facebook and Twitter and these things because those things didn't exist
too early.
yet. I remember the message board discourse and people like trashing the movies and like what is going on here and like but like. I even though
they just didn't have the tone. Yeah, they didn't have the tongue in cheek.
Those 3 movies are definitely inferior to the original trilogy. But I will say I think like the stories were there, and I think especially about the prequels. I think they got better as they went. Revenge of the Sith I think has some redeeming qualities, despite some very memey scenes in it. No, you will die. You know, the Emperor being kind of hammy and all that kind of stuff.
Well, but and the lead actors.
But the stories are there, and also you get
zero chemistry.
You come out of that movie and you get the tragedy. You get the tragedy that George Lucas was going for. Like Anakin was trying so hard to like save his wife from dying, and he totally dropped the ball there. And like he ends up causing his wife to die and becoming
more evil,
abusive, evil person that we.
I will say production quality. On the human aspects, I wasn't in love with how the droidery was done, but on the human aspects, especially the second movie and getting into the third, production aspects were phenomenal. Sure. And the makeup and costume artists, like the world building, I thought was beautiful. And the thing I appreciated the most now that we're in a future Star Wars era where new stuff is coming out, movies and shows, is that the prequel 1, 2, 3 did some more foundational world building, which was kind of in the minds of the creators. That's like one of the during the 4, 5, 6 trilogy that first came out. Obviously, it was a big world, and I think 1, 2, 3 helps us to understand the world. I just feel like the directing made the lead actors extremely wooden, and they've been much more talented in other roles. So. They didn't have any chemistry with each other, which also could have been the poor directing and the fact that they were directed to be way too wooden. Yeah. And also that he went from being a tiny, tiny child to her sexual partner in like a split second. Yeah, it was sort of like Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci in Sleepy Hollow. Like very creepy moments ago she was playing a child.
Though I think, I was just thinking about the other day, because I think in the first movie he's supposed to be 9 and she's 14. So when you think it's not that big of an age difference,
but she was so clearly not 14.
Yeah, it's kind of
she was so clearly a young person, but a grown up, and she was serving as the empress of her people, whatever the title for her was.
She was queen, and then she becomes senator.
Yeah, and it was just weird. That was just weird.
My feeling on the prequels is this.
But I did love the look and the.
My feeling on the prequel is this. I think George Lucas's vision, his imagination, his storytelling. I think the way the stuff he comes up with, as far as like the imaginative stuff and the creatures and the visuals, I think is second to none. I feel like nobody does. I feel like that's maybe one of the things, and we'll get into that later, that's been missing with the Disney Star Wars, is that imaginative thinking that I feel like only George had. But I will say that's the big thing with the prequels, is like he cannot write dialogue or direct actors to save his life. He's never been good at those things, by the way.
Yeah.
A New Hope he had help, and it's kind of a fluke. Again, if you don't believe me, scenes like Leia saying, "Governor Tarkin, I recognize your foul stench," and stuff like this. Like Harrison Ford famously told George Lucas, "You can type this shit, but you can't say it," on the set of A New Hope. So a lot of that came together because he had help from his friends Brian De Palma and like Steven Spielberg to like bounce ideas off of, at least, and be like, what's working, what isn't working, tweaking things.
Yeah, I felt like in 1, 2, 3 he was like a mad genius and he'd gone too far. Yeah. And like he had too much power.
Totally. Yeah.
And people were too afraid of him to let him know.
But that's the thing. That's the one thing, though.
This doesn't work. You've gone too far.
That's like it's like pros and cons, because that's one of the things that's like very that's very unique about the prequels, is that is an auteur's vision. There's no that you don't get that anymore. There's no studio interference with those films. Any flaws and pros and cons and good things and bad things about
the fault
those
of the
movies
director
are
and-
all the fault of George Lucas.
I lay them at his feet.
All because
it's
no
very
one
imperfect.
was telling him what to do. He had carte blanche to make exactly the movies he wanted to make, and that's what he made.
Yes. And very cool aside story on that point. I once went to see the 25th anniversary screening of Labyrinth, another of my
Nice.
favorite films of all time.
Did Lucas produce that one too? He did, right?
Yes,
He
and,
did,
and
yeah.
it was his studios, and the effects studios, the creature
Right.
studios, and everything were
Yeah.
used. And it's Jim Henson with Brian Froud,
Right,
and they
yeah.
had created the Dark Crystal together, and then they created Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And I went to see Brian Froud
We
with
don't get too deep into it because we may
No.
do another podcast episode on that.
okay,
Just
and
saying.
I went to see. I won't tell all the details.
Okay.
I will
Save
save
it.
this. It's an awesome story. I did get to speak with Brian Froud, though.
Nice.
And I actually spoke with him about Star Wars and Labyrinth and what it was like being part of the effects studios and the creature shops and the costume shops, because he brought up that they were working in the same shops with all of the Star Wars group
Yeah.
folks, because Labyrinth was 1983, I think, so it would have been about Empire-ish time frame. Empire Strikes Back.
83. No, that Return of the Jedi would have come out in 83.
Return of the Jedi was 83?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Empire was 80.
Oh, okay. So it's between Empire and Return of the Jedi, and they're putting Labyrinth in, and so they're overlapping with the people that, like, all the stuff is around, so all the Star Wars stuff is around, and they're building all the Labyrinth stuff. And George was sometimes there, and Brian Froud was describing it to me, and he was like, it was very bizarre, because we would just be interacting with all of these young artists who were working in this amazing, amazing effect studio and creatures, and they were doing, animatronic things and puppetry things and building the models and all the scale stuff, and all that. And one day George Lucas came on set and everybody just shut down. And no one would say anything. And Brian Froud just sort of witnessed everybody just going,
Whoa.
like, people were so intimidated. He had just become such a genius, and no one would,
Wow.
people are just afraid. They just waited. You tell us what to
Interesting.
do, and then we're just going to go do it. But, like, everything was just like, you could hear a pin drop kind of thing. And everything's like, everything's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then, like, this person walks on set, and it's just like, what can we do for you? And I felt like that's what happened in those first three movies. There were good things and bad things. He liked to do things for children, which is how we got Ewoks.
Right.
And
that's the thing.
that's how
I
we get
will
Jar Jar
say,
Binks.
like, that's
but
the thing I will say.
Jar
I
Jar
know-
Binks very questionable.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Disney banned Song of the South, and we don't play that anymore. Like Jar Jar Binks' accent and like his deference, and the way he speaks. It to me seemed a little bit like some of the things that we just don't do anymore at all. Like not cool. Like heart, and so
that's all George.
Always
That's all George. By the
bothered
way,
me.
asterisk on that. That's all George. By the way, no threat, no shade at all thrown at best. I am thrilled that he showed up in Mandalorian as a different character and got a little bit of redemption in that sense because of how
Not
fans
his fault.
trashed him to the point where he almost committed suicide.
Oh,
like
gosh.
really, really messed up. Fan base.
Not his fault.
That's part of the thing we're going to get
Not
into
his
deeper
fault. George
in
Lucas
this
was
episode, by the
mad
way.
genius, and everyone was too intimidated to say no to anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And I spoke to this other creator, creating it in one of my favorite films of all time, talking to him about being on set with these people. And that's what he said. It's like everybody was terrified. They were just like, mad genius. The genius is here. The man is here. We will do whatever he says.
Yeah, I can kind of sense that, and I think that, not that like, I guess that's like just difference for like, oh, he just produced the highest grossing movie trilogy in this big thing of all time.
The movies
and,
are special.
all that.
4,
So,
5, and
like,
6 are just special.
Yeah,
And
and
people
so
just
like
knew.
I guess that was it going into it, and
Yeah.
of course, if you're working for Lucasfilm, he is the Lucas in Lucasfilm. You don't want to make him mad, So I get that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I don't.
Well, and then I think like 1, 2, 3 went too far. There were just many. They were flawed.
Yeah.
There were good things, and then there
George
were
Lucas liked to play with his
bad things.
Like to play with his CG toys and stuff like that.
And I
think he got caught up with
despised
that.
how he got too enamored of CG
Yeah.
and screwed up things about 4, 5, 6. And I have the last DVD
Yeah.
box set that was created that has the original film on a DVD on the left sleeve, and then it has the new CG monkeyed with messed up versions on the right-hand sleeve. So I actually have both VHS box set and DVD box set that has the undoctored 4, 5, 6 films because they should not have been screwed with.
As far as the special edition changes, I'm kind of over it at this point. I think, first of all, I feel like some of the special edition changes are good, despite the way fans like to trash them. The fucking Death Star fight scene, the Death Star battle at the end, is so much better with the improvements. I will die on that hill. I don't care what anybody says. However, George Lucas had the tendency, he just kept tinkering until he gave it away. Until he
Jabba the
sold
Hutt's
it.
tail is just so stupid.
It is. No, it is.
And the
it's
CG
totally stupid.
Jabba and
that scene didn't need to be there.
Oh my god, it's so painful. I want all of the special editions gone because that moment is so
By
bad.
the way, fans have created a quote-unquote de-specialized edition where they've taken like high-definition transfers and things. They basically cobbled an edit together of the most high-def quality they can of the originals without any changes. So if you ever wanted to, if you ever interested,
I have them on DVD.
That does exist. So
I have them on DVD. I can just watch them. Because Lucas was like, this is the last time they will be allowed to be created.
And I can understand on some level of like wanting...
And then after this, only the special editions will ever be available.
I can understand on a level that some fans want that purely for historical posterity, to know what it was like to see it in the films, exactly how they were.
Movie.
But I also understand the element of like letting it adapt over time a bit. But then there's some changes that George Lucas made, like putting all those rocks in front of R2-D2 in A New Hope in the latest version, and they look fake and terrible, and like, what are we doing? Why is he? Why? Why?
There was a lot of why.
There's a lot of why.
A lot of why.
It's a lot of why with George Lucas. It's like I don't pretend. There's two people.
I get wrinkles.
Two
I get
creators.
wrinkles from him.
Two creators. I don't pretend to, even as much as I love a lot of his work. There's two artists. I don't pretend to know what's going on in their head anymore, and it's George Lucas and David Lynch. We will never understand what's going on in their heads, and that's just fine by me.
Twin Peaks. That's another thing.
We'll get to that. We'll cover that. We'll cover that. It's coming.
Labyrinth, Bowie, Twin Peaks. Yeah. These things are coming.
So anyway.
This podcast is the best.
We get past,
to come up with the best.
We get past the prequel era, and there was the Clone Wars series, which definitely got better as it goes, which I think we need to delve into a little bit at times.
We've watched a little bit.
We've watched a little bit, but especially like as we get towards the Ahsoka series, which is coming out this August.
I mean, that's what I've liked about it the most so far. Is
some of the highlight episodes. I think we should definitely delve into.
Yeah, I really like Ahsoka as a character, so I'm glad to have been introduced to her before the announcement of the live action show. Yeah. To have already seen enough of the Clone Wars.
There's an amazing arc which Disney recently did with their newest season of Clone Wars, which coincides right with Revenge of the Sith, and it shows where Ahsoka was during, because Ahsoka was created after the prequels, but supposedly was there during the Clone Wars and stuff. And it shows where she was concurrent with the events of Revenge of the Sith when Order 66 is dropped and all the Jedi are supposed to be murdered. It's a really good. I watched that arc. It's really good. We should. That's definitely necessary viewing in the near future. But anyway, we get past that and we get towards October 2012, the historic date when Disney bought Lucasfilm and said, we're making 7, 8, and 9. We never thought that when Episode 3 came out, I remember the whole narrative around it was, this is going to be the last Star Wars movie. So we came out of Revenge of the Sith going, that's it. Like, we saw the arc with Darth Vader, we saw the whole completion of that storyline and that cycle, and we thought that was all the Star Wars we were going to get. And that was going to be it. But then Disney comes along and goes, nope, we are making 7, 8, and 9. And I remember thinking at the time, what story are they going to tell? Like, where can they go with this? Like, what is there left to do?
Also made Rogue One,
exactly.
Which is the best prequel thing that exists.
But before we get into Rogue One, we got Force Awakens, which was like kind of reinvigorated a lot of people's love in Star Wars again. I remember coming out of the theater being like really excited. Like I thought, okay, well that was clearly retreading a lot of stuff of A New Hope and just doing a new version of it, but it kicked ass. And like a lot of it like really worked, and I was like, okay, and then Rey handing the lightsaber out and Luke's turning around, and it's old Mark Hamill, and I was like thrilled, like spinning around the cliff, and I'm like, what the hell is going to happen in this trilogy next.
And I also like that they had opened up how they were going to be casting. It was a much more inclusive, much more diverse cast, which felt a lot more accessible to me in our world, to their world. It was a better. Yeah. It was not like a white man's patriarchal world. Like, I love 4, 5, 6, but it's like the world of the white man, and then like one female, and everybody has the love interest, even though it's somebody's sister. Like, like. Yeah, but that's a flaw of the original trilogy, is that it comes as a product of a time that is like way too white male patriarchal society.
I'm going to have more to say on that as we get, because we're going to.
So I like 7, 8, 9 because
where it gets a little,
and the shows, because they really have embraced diversity and inclusion and strong female characters.
That's one of the good things about it, and I'm going to start to, as we get into now 8 and 9. I'm starting to get into some of those sort of where it went wrong, but there are a lot of people who want to say that it went wrong from there, and they just hate the fact that they cast that they gave the Millennium Falcon to a girl, and how dare you cast a black person and things.
And I'm like,
to those people,
that's the best.
To those people, I want to illustrate right the fuck now. Fuck you. Fuck those people that if seriously do some self-reflection. If you just hate the new Star Wars just because they're casting people other than white males, and then please
I'm just gonna throw up on over your patriarchy.
Please just stick a rusty spoon up your ass and go fuck yourself. Please. And there you go. So we'll probably get tons of hate comments. There you
we're
go.
Done with.
Fuck you. But whatever. But that said, we get into 8 and 9, where things start to go a bit downhill. I will say, for the most part, there's a lot that I like about Episode 8. I'm not on the super Episode 8 hate train. I actually really respect a lot of what Last Jedi did, because after Force Awakens, I was going into that second movie going, please don't just do a retread of Empire Strikes Back and have Kylo Ren be like, Rey, I'm your cousin, or some shit like that, where it's like clearly echoing the story beats. So the things where they didn't do that, where he's like, no, you came from nothing. Your parents were sold you for drinking money, and that scene where they cut Snoke, that throne room scene where they cut Snoke in half, is one of the most badass scenes. That's another hill I will die on. I fucking adore that scene. And I know some people have pointed out how the fight choreography makes no sense. I am not a fight choreography person, so I would not have noticed that if you didn't tell me. So, sure, fair enough, but,
for you.
I don't care. It's good enough for me. And also, certain things, I get, I think it's both the biggest pro and the biggest con with Episode 8 that Rian Johnson wanted to take risks. That Rian Johnson clearly wanted to, kind of do something completely, do a different kind of Star Wars movie, but there are a few places where I think that really works really well, and a few places where, maybe a few more than that, where it doesn't work. Where I'm like, where the story kind of doesn't make sense. Why is Admiral Holdo, Laura Dern's purple-haired character, why is she, not telling the other Resistance rebels the plan, and, they cause a mutiny, and it's you could have just told them we're going to this place. You could have just told them what was up. It doesn't make any sense. And the casino storyline that happens with Finn and Rose going off on that side tangent storyline that makes no goddamn sense and actually has no bearing on the plot. And Benicio del Toro,
the pod race taking power.
Exactly, and Benicio del Toro doing that weird stutter, and his character means nothing either. And it's what are we doing?
Why are you there?
So things like that. So anyway, so I'm
even though
I'm very iffy on Last Jedi.
Filler.
I feel like there's things that I really like about that movie and things that I really don't like about that movie. And so I'm kind of that's where I'm at with that one. But I will say I think Episode 9 should have followed on from that. And this is the story we're telling now. Here we come to Episode 9, and it becomes abundantly clear that Disney did not really have a plan for this trilogy. That they just wanted to make movies and Kathleen Kennedy just said, here, J.J. Abrams, you make a movie, and here, Rian Johnson, you make a movie, and here, originally, Colin Trevorrow, before J.J. stepped back in and took over Episode 9, here, you make a movie. What's the story going to be? I don't know, we're making Star Wars movies, just nostalgia, and throw Star Destroyers, and make a movie, but make sure you cast a female lead, and I don't know, then, because
there was just a lot of action.
Exactly, because Episode 9 it's just course correction. They're straight up saying oh no Rey, you're Palpatine's granddaughter now, and they're like straight up undoing things. It's like they're breaking the main rule of improv, which is like you're supposed to yes and you're not supposed to go no, we're not in a gas station, we're at the mall. Like no, what the fuck are we doing? So as much shit as you like to give the prequels, I've rewatched Attack of the Clones again several times. I've rewatched Revenge of the Sith again, and I actually defend Revenge of the Sith now. I've rewatched Episode 1, even though it's kind of boring in several places. I've rewatched that one again. I have no desire to rewatch Rise of Skywalker again. Yeah. I don't. It felt... Here's the thing. Being a lifelong Star Wars fan, and having, like, you know, cousins and relatives who know this, but don't really know a whole lot about me beyond that, because I'm kind of shy,
sometimes
slightly on the spectrum. So, like, I'm hard to get to know at times. I admit that I'm a hard nut to crack. It's fine. They try to get me like Christmas presents and stuff, and like,
oh boy,
they get me like any old
very
thing,
tacky
any
Star
old
Wars
tacky
socks.
thing that's got Darth Vader gumball machine. I got a Darth Vader gumball machine.
That's okay, because
I gave that away. So yeah. I say all that as a long-winded way.
We re-gift those.
I say all that as a long-winded way to say The Rise of Skywalker is basically like the film equivalent of that Darth Vader gumball machine. It's like just trying to make you happy. See, you like Star Wars things here. We want to make you happy. Please like this movie. Please like... And no, it feels very empty. Like the Ewoks at the end, just because they could be there. Giving Chewie a medal because fans complained that Chewie didn't get a medal at the end of Episode 4, and it's so clearly pandering to that. Like, it's fast food Star Wars, and I want nothing to do with empty Star Wars. As much as people like to shit on George Lucas for stuff in the prequels, at least there was a story, and there was some depth, and he was trying to expand the universe, and there was a story he was trying to tell. It became abundantly clear, though, with the sequels, they didn't have a worthwhile story to tell.
Rogue
which is
One.
Infuriating. However, we got a side note and say
Rogue One.
Absolutely.
All right. So I have seen 7, 8, and 9. I can't remember any of their titles. He knows them. I don't even know their titles. I just know it's 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
And I forget the characters' names. I can picture
They're that
them.
Forgettable. It's fine.
I can't remember anything that happened. I like the little puffiny porg things. Yeah.
Yeah. Porgs. Yeah.
Porgs. I like the porgs.
Yes.
I was really glad that Han and Leia could come back.
Yes.
I understood, that Harrison Ford had said he would only make 7, and that was it. He was done.
Well,
so they had to come up with...
He wanted to die in Return of the Jedi. So as soon as he we heard Harrison Ford is coming back as Han Solo in his new trilogy, I'm like, I bet he's going to die.
He's coming back to die. Yeah.
I knew he was going to bite it.
Yeah.
I knew it because I knew he wanted to die in Return of the Jedi, and George was no.
I think he told me this. So
yeah.
I was like sad and a little disappointed, but I understood this is going to be a part of the story.
And also
that's necessary.
And also that was perfect as far as the heel turn for Kylo Ren, because every fan is now going to hate that motherfucker because he just killed Han Solo. So it was perfectly orchestrated heel turn.
And then Carrie Fisher died, so she was in 7 and 8, but
she
not
was in
9.
7 and 8 and not 9. Correct.
Yeah, and so she
well, technically she was in 9, but they reused footage from 7.
She wasn't really in 9.
It's very obvious, but anyway.
Mark Hamill getting to be in it is fantastic. He's wonderful, and I'm happy for him to be in it. But they're very forgettable. I can't remember much about it. I like the Porgs. I like Han and Leia coming back. It was cool that Luke came back. I like the diversity of the actors and characters that they cast. I sort of remember little things about the characters. But mostly all of it's just sort of like a wash. It didn't really stick. However, so done with those. Rogue One is phenomenal. So if you haven't seen that, watch it. You don't even have to watch...
Yeah.
You don't have to watch more of the world. No. I don't feel like you have to watch everything.
I will say with Rogue One, the first 2 acts, the first couple acts, the first 2/3 of the movie is kind of middling and kind of there's just going whatever. It's the 3rd act that makes that movie fucking brilliant.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So if you haven't watched it, I don't want to say anything about it in case it's a spoiler alert. I'm actually not going to give a spoiler.
I mean, spoiler alert, they get the plans of the Death Star, which you already fucking know. From
it
the
works
end of the New
into...
Hope.
what happens between Episode 3 and Episode 4 of the 9 films. So it takes place in between 3 and 4. And it gives us an incredibly valuable plot point for something we have to take for granted in A New Hope, Episode 4.
Yeah.
As it explains that, it gives us the entire backstory towards that. but it's just a beautiful film. It tells a really tight story, and it's really daring.
Yeah.
And what happens is like unexpected by the end, like in that third act. Like I was riveted. There's not that many movies that completely stun me where I'm like speechless. I can think of like 2 other films where I felt a little bit as speechless and stunned at the end of the movie. Like, it's hard to leave the theater because I'm just like reverberating with the choices they made and what just happened. And that happened to me also with American Beauty. Is a powerful movie, and it happened to me with just the impact of Brokeback Mountain. Those are 2 movies that are so beautifully, poignantly told, and the stories just they can hit you. Like, if you really take in what they're saying, they can really hit you. And there were just things that they did in Rogue One that I was just like, wow.
Also, I really like Solo. Solo's good. It's not like brilliant, but I really enjoyed it. The one dumb scene is like them giving Han Solo his name. You're Han and you have nobody. Okay, Han Solo. That's the dumbest scene in the world. Didn't need to do that. But other than that, it was very well done for what it was. Especially when you hear about the tumultuous stuff that kind of went on behind the scenes. It came together quite well when you know that. But also Alden Ehrenreich did great as Han Solo. Yeah, he's not Harrison Ford. Who the fuck else is? But he did great as a young Han Solo, and Donald Glover, my man Donald Glover, as Billy, as Lando, as Billy D. Williams' character.
As
Lando.
Billy's character.
Yeah.
We're gonna go visit with some Billy D. Williams.
We might get to see some Billy D. Williams here at a con.
At one of the cons, yeah. So then, moving on to the shows.
Yeah, let's move on to the shows. So then we,
franchise.
Then
Spaceballs, toilet paper.
Star Wars movies, exactly. Star Wars movies are kind of put on ice for a bit, and they're kind of still on ice until maybe coming up here in a couple of years. Who knows? But yeah, so we get Mandalorian, and it comes out of nowhere. We're like, okay, what's this Mandalorian? I remember sitting down with you and watching the very first episode, and like, well, there's this new Star Wars show about the Mandalorian. I was like, okay.
Baby head,
and then
baby head.
You get the cutest little merchandising opportunity in the world pops into our lives. There you go.
And you only get this. First episode, you that's it. Not even an ear.
Yes.
I was like,
anyway.
What? There's more Yodas!
Of course, Mandalorian. Seasons 1 and 2, I think, are pretty damn great. Like, it's a great, like, concept. Like, the thing with Mandalorian, it almost feels like a video game, because it's like you go on, it's like a lot of like side quests. It's like, on this episode you need to be solving this, on this episode you need to find this and kill this monster, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I like the episodic nature of it.
It feels
they're gonna have hurdles and challenges, and then overall there's like an arc of like the bond forming between this little entity and.
I don't think we knew it made sounds until now. I don't think we knew that until that. Yes.
Oh my god! We've had this since Mandalorian season 1. You got it for me that Christmas. But our dogs want to eat Grogu. He wasn't Grogu
Lucy,
yet.
R.I.P. But
our pit bull
probably would want to eat that too. But,
so he's been in a case.
Yeah, we keep him in a case.
In a case
with a bunch of other knickknacks and stuff.
I didn't know he made noise. Oh my god!
For the audio listeners, we squeezed the baby Grogu toy and it makes little noises. So that's fun.
Oh my god!
So
so funny. Anyway.
So yeah, Mando seasons 1 and 2 are I wouldn't say perfect necessarily, but near perfect. And season 3, this most recent one, definitely the lowest of the 3. Definitely not the best. It has some good moments here and there, but like certain things are a little weird.
I'm actually not taking it. I'm enjoying it. It's been interesting because they went back to Coruscant, right?
They went back to Coruscant for one of the episodes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I sort of like this sort of detouring back to Coruscant and picking up bits from the world building that happened in episodes 1 through 3.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I like...
No.
It's becoming a more, like, intricate interwoven tapestry, because then like the overlaps that happen with the other shows that are emerging and with the Boba Fett. So I really like the Boba Fett show.
You like the Boba Fett show?
I
I think it's as far as the Disney Plus series, it might be the lowest for me. I feel like it's very clear that they started with a thing, and it's weird how the more of Boba Fett we get, the more boring and uninteresting he becomes.
Aww.
like seriously, like he's supposed to be like this. He's supposed to be taking over, Jabba's, title and being this crime lord boss, and he seems to like bend over backwards for everybody else and not really being like using his power that well. And then his whole show gets taken over and becomes Mando season 2.5. Like
that was interesting.
In the show that's supposed to be the Boba Fett show, he fucks off for 2 episodes and it becomes Mando's show.
That was interesting though. It was interesting. I just feel like it's all world building.
I feel like what happened was when Grogu left got picked up by Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2. I feel like the bosses panicked, and I think I've heard reports here and there that rumors that may or may not be true, that Kathleen Kennedy said, "No, you need to bring Grogu back with Mando right now," and Favreau's like, "No, he's becoming a Jedi." Blah blah blah. It's like it was better story, but and so. I liked the weird. I love that I got these strange bonus episodes about Mandalorian because I was so in love with Mandalorian. Sure.
That it just dropped in and I was like, ooh, okay, more of this. I like it.
Like the weird Vespa people and Mando, they're wearing on colored Vespas.
The little mods. The 50s. They were the mods. They were like the British mods. Everybody had their color. I liked when he was with the Raiders, right? He was with the Tusken Raiders and becoming shamanistic.
Sure, yeah.
And I like the soundtrack.
That was all right.
I like the soundtrack music, and I like his fight, and I like the ritualistic aspect of how they're, I don't know, I like that aspect of the tribes and the world and him taking that part on before he then transitions into the Jabba.
I will say though, hands down, the best Disney Plus series is Andor. Andor's the best. Andor is what we need in Star Wars right now. I'll say that. Let's start to get into it because the main reason I want to tackle this topic is I want to talk about the future of the franchise and where it's going, because it seems like ever since Disney bought it, it's becoming, one, we're getting a lot more content. We're filling out the world, which is both good and bad, because you kind of see them, they're kind of trying to ride that nostalgia thing, and sometimes it feels like, do you actually have a story to tell, or are you just trying to milk people for money? And sometimes you get stuff like Andor, which actually feels like it's enhancing the world and enhancing the universe, and it's not relying on fan service and empty things of, oh, here's Darth Vader again because you like Darth Vader. No, he's not even in it. And it's it's shining a light on this corner, and it's this gritty, showing the real these sacrifices that people behind the rebellion are having to make and fight this empire.
Well, and it's a story that's a spin-off backstory of Rogue One.
Of Rogue One's main character,
which is a spin-off film backstory
which is awesome.
Of what happened between Episode 3 and Episode 4.
Yeah.
So then you have this 3.5 movie, a spin-off show about a character that you're going to see in that movie, which sort of end up fitting into the major world. Yeah. It's so outside of the canon, so you don't have all these tropes because they're the facts of what's unfolding in that universe, and then Andor and those characters are caught up in it, and you have someone who's going to do something really radical in their future, but they're starting in a less radicalized place, and you're seeing what's going through somebody who's trying to just get by and trying to survive and isn't trying to become this big rebel,
and also where they do weave where they do weave in characters who you've seen before. Yeah, it's characters that would totally be part of the story, and it feels earned. They have Mon Mothma. I love that they brought back the actress who played the character from Return of the Jedi, played her in the prequels. Yeah, or was going to. I think her scenes may have been deleted from the prequels, but anyway, she's
not in there as the prequels,
and then she
have all the scenes, including the
appears in
ones.
Rogue One, and she appears in this Andor series,
and she's fantastic.
Trying to behind the scenes, establish get the funds behind people's backs to fund the rebellion. Yeah, is awesome.
She's trying to pass as a normal senator who's not rebelling, and in secretly she's helping to create what becomes a unified rebellion, and it's also not unified yet.
Yeah.
So there's splinter groups of people who are separately dissenting, that are separately rebelling from the core, but they're not unified. So they're all a mess. And basically I love that, because what I see in the world in activism is that there's many different splinter groups who dislike. So there's just like ecological activists, and they're very separate from social justice activists, who are separate from trans activists, who, you know, and so, and they're not unified.
Yeah.
And then they get isolated, and they get spit upon and shat upon, and they're further getting counterattacked by the center, by the core center that's like, everything conventional is awesome, and we love white male capitalist consumers patriarchy, and fuck everybody else, and fuck the earth and all creatures, and fuck anybody of color, and fuck people who have a weird sexuality or gender identity or whatever. And then they're all harmed because they're all splitter groups that are rallying around particular causes, particular contexts. But instead, if you get to the bigger stage of like, okay, what we have is individualism versus conformity. And all of the individualists that are fighting for the right for things to exist, if we could come together, we're going to be so much more powerful. And so what you see in Star Wars is that eventually they've come together and become more powerful. But what Andor helps explore in a little bit, you see it, I think, in like Mandalorian too, just trying to figure out what's happening with the world and like what happens when things come together and what happens when things fall apart.
That's once again the best parts of Mandalorian for me, is when it feels like it's not trying to be fan servicey, like empty Star Wars.
And
when it's
repeat
like
something
when it's
else.
trying to fill in the universe, and it's taking inspiration from the stuff that inspired Star Wars, i.e. like westerns and like shoot 'em up and like bounty hunter stuff like that. Like when it's really getting stuff like that. And so like if a character that you've seen before shows up,
Carl Weathers.
It feels earned. It feels right.
He's cool.
Yeah. Carl Weathers is
he's
good.
cool.
He's good. Yeah.
He does good. He does really good. I like him. I like his character. His character's got an arc. He's got an about face. You know, he starts one thing, he ends another. Like I like that. It's good, and he's a great actor.
I will say, I don't know if I haven't heard. I don't know if they're doing a Mando season 4, but I'm like, if they do, like, where the hell do you go from there? That last season kind of felt like that's where you could wrap it. You could end it. Other than this, I don't know what you do with it, or if you should, but whatever.
And then Ahsoka's coming up. Speaking of what we do with it, so I hope that Ahsoka will be much like Andor, because it's so far outside of the norm of the most well-known characters that they'll have the freedom.
Unless you've seen Rebels, I feel like they're taking a lot of characters. And I feel a lot of people are saying it looks from the trailers, from what we've seen, it looks like it's going to be Rebels season whatever, one day on season 4, season 5, you know, whatever. It feels like it's going to be the next Rebels season, because so many characters from that are popping in, and Ahsoka was a big part of Rebels as well. So it feels like they're continuing a lot of those threads, and also Admiral Thrawn, who was originally in those novels in the Wilderness years, has been brought into the official Star Wars canon through Rebels, and is now going to appear in live action in Ahsoka, and I think is going to be the big bad of that, so that's cool.
But basically, her name Rosario Dawson, right?
Rosario Dawson is playing.
I am just thrilled with her casting.
Yeah.
She's phenomenal.
Great job. Yeah.
She's phenomenal.
Yep.
She's so perfect for Ahsoka.
I will not complain about her being in anything.
Gorgeous and graceful and powerful and like, because she was in Daredevil and she was in Clerks 3 and
Clerks 2.
And Clerks 2. And she's on, and Kids back in the day. She was in the film Kids. That was her breakthrough role.
Yeah.
And she's been amazing and just like stunning. You can't get enough of watching her do anything she does. Like, she's so good in Daredevil. She's so good. And she's so good in Clerks 3. She's so good. And I had missed seeing Clerks 2, so I was like, what's this storyline? But she was awesome. So I'm very excited about her coming and playing Ahsoka. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well. And we'll have to like do some catch up. So as we kind of pivot a little bit,
we'll review Ahsoka eventually.
I'll first invite you guys. Let us know. We've kind of covered more or less all the stuff. Except
Star Wars is a huge world. That's why we were like, what are we going to do?
Let us know in the comments below. Like, what is your favorite thing in Star Wars? What are your thoughts on anything on any of our opinions? What is our
any highlights?
Any highlights? But also,
I will say as a goth, I love Episode 2 because Amidala has the best outfits.
Oh yeah,
including that very bondage-esque corset with that fireside scene. And
George
I was
Lucas made that outfit himself. George Lucas designed that himself.
Because I was watching that in the theater when it came out, and I was like,
yeah, I'm
gonna need all of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need every bit of that. Like, it was hot.
That outfit was George's idea.
I just don't want to let Star Wars go without making a comment that, like...
in Return of the Jedi was also his idea.
Oh my.
I'm just saying.
I don't know about Leia's bikini. But everybody's got their fetish, right? But I really love that. I loved all of her outfits in episode 2.
Oh, yeah, same.
Amidala,
that's the highlight of episode 2.
Her costumes, and that's why I was the costume and the makeup, amazing.
That's the only reason I get kind of, like, I wish he had, consulted somebody about the romance dialogue on that movie. Gotten somebody who could write some stuff, because, like, if they had that with the...
It wasn't even bad dialogue.
If they had any sort of tension, any sort of, chemistry whatsoever.
Seeming like they even wanted to be in a room with each other, much less going to have a passionate love affair that leads to
other than, like,
death.
no, he admits to slaughtering a bunch of sand people, and she's like, I love you. It's like...
What?
You get what you asked for, then, in the next movie. Anyway, moving on.
But yeah, I mean, it's a huge world. So if you have favorite things that we haven't cited, like I just had to make sure I cited how much I loved her corset outfit in episode 2. Add it to the comments.
Also let us know about what I'm about to ask, which is how do we feel about the future of Star Wars as it is now? Because I don't know, it's a lot of things like
there's a lot of it now.
First of all, there's so much of it.
And
the thing is, one of the things that made Star Wars special back in the day. Again, we are old people. I remember when it was just the original trilogy, and that's all we had.
Speak for yourself.
I remember old in age.
I'm not old, but
old in age, but not in spirit. How about that?
Yes.
In years, we've been around where we weren't born yesterday.
Around a bit.
We weren't born yesterday, so I remember. When you had to wait,
had 4, 5, 6.
I remember even when the prequels came out, we had to wait 3 years between all of those movies. So it felt like a lifetime, and also it felt like a finite thing, and it made Star Wars feel. Star Wars felt like an event back in the day. It felt special. Now that there's so much content, but 2, it's owned by Disney, and it's like so many things being churned out. It feels way less special now. It just feels like more things that we're watching amongst all the other things that we're watching, and it's just kind of like, eh. So, I mean, it's pros and cons, because, like, one, it's like, okay, like, I'm not super mad if a Star Wars thing doesn't hit with me, or if it's, well, that was lame. Like, I don't really care that much
there's going to be more.
Anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like, Kathleen Kennedy ruined my childhood. No, I don't put that much stock in it. But 2, it feels less special. So I'm like, does Star Wars need to take a break? Is it good? Is it a good or bad thing that they're kind of doing like the Marvel thing and having it being this connected universe? That said, there's a lot of like projects that they've kind of recently announced that I'm actually excited about. One, this may be entirely news to you as far as this. I think this was like a couple months ago. I think it was a Star Wars Celebration. They announced this stuff. They announced that there's going to be kind of a big biblical kind of epic, like set like a few thousand years before anything we've seen about the formation of the Jedi and the discovery of the Force. Directed by James Mangold, who did Logan. He's doing the new Indiana Jones movie that's about to come out. So that I'm super interested in. I was actually like, that was an idea I was thinking about, like calling it Star Wars: The First Jedi. Like I was thinking like that would be cool. About somebody like discovering, like being like, whoa, what's this new power I have? That could be really. There's a lot of really cool narrative potential there. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I feel like they've done a good job in the new ones and trying to make the world really beautiful and really authentic and true to what they were what we had in like New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Like if you watch the behind the scenes of like Mandalorian and maybe Andor has it, or Boba Fett. I know Mando has a lot of behind the scenes stuff. We've watched all the behind the scenes that we can find on
that's what
and just like the studios and the costuming and the world building and like the storytelling. I feel like they're being very thoughtful.
For sure. And they have a whole story group that's
created by people.
Their whole purpose is to make sure that everything lines up right and there aren't glaring continuity
which movies 7, 8, and 9 did not have.
Yeah.
You can tell that there is so much collaboration and so many people that have grown up with Star Wars. Yeah. They hold it with deep, deep, deep reverence. And even if you don't love everything they're doing and it doesn't really hit with you, like the shows are being done so thoughtfully. I really respect how thoughtfully those crews are doing it. Yeah. And Disney's this mega engine behind it. It's like, make more! But there's so
Yeah.
many people that love Star Wars, and now they're having a chance to build beautiful stories within that universe, and I love that. So
I think
I had
that's-
not heard about this First Jedi
No,
thing,
yeah.
but I really hope they can do a good job.
That's the lesson that I think and I hope they've learned from that sequel trilogy is you gotta plan these things. You can't just go
Know
in
what
saying
you're
we're gonna
doing,
make movies and that's it. 'cause,
AKA
like,
Third Matrix.
exactly, and don't be like reactionary to people's anyway. But
Know what
the
you're
other
doing
other
up front.
projects that are announced, they're doing Dave Filoni, who's the guy who
Storyteller, director.
collaborated very closely with George Lucas, starting with the Clone Wars series, and has since gone on to help with stuff like Mandalorian.
He's like
and,
a showrunner
and he's
for a lot of
basically
these new shows.
he's basically the showrunner for Ahsoka, which
Yeah.
makes sense since
Oh.
Ahsoka Tano is that character is entirely his baby, his creation.
Aw.
So. Yeah,
I
so-
think he does a good
and,
job.
Yeah,
I
he's
like
great.
Dave Filoni's
He's one person I think should probably
Stay involved.
Stay involved. Be like head of creative for Lucasfilm. Like he should
Yeah.
be the one calling the love. Like it's okay that you got Kathleen Kennedy, mega producer, saying yes or no to certain things, but like as far as coming up with the stories and guiding the creative direction,
Yeah.
Dave Filoni knows what the hell he's doing, and also closely collaborated with George, and like has that. It's like he had that passed down to him in that sense. But yeah, so he is actually supposed to do a film that's kind of set after a lot of the Disney Plus stuff, which takes place after Return of the Jedi. So Mando, Ahsoka, this stuff, and he's supposed to do a New Republic era set movie that's supposed to wrap up a lot of those storylines. So that was one of the things that was announced. And the other thing that was announced was a film about the formation of the new Jedi Order with Daisy Ridley reprising her role as Rey, set 15 years after the last sequel movie, where she's like rebuilding the Jedi kind of thing.
You love the Jedi.
And while you heard my thoughts earlier about Rise of Skywalker and that whole trilogy, and how much that whole trilogy I think was a gigantic letdown and a missed opportunity, I'm still cautiously optimistic about that movie. I still think they could do that right. There's nothing but narrative potential there. They just got to do it right. I'm kind of like not sitting fully with crossed arms, but like kind of like you guys got some work to do to get the kind of to make sure that you're telling a good story there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my debate I want to have with you quickly as far as like the future of Star Wars is like how do they get for lack of words get the mojo back again. And for me personally, I think you've got to build the universe out. I feel like you've got to take chances, and that's the one thing I'm afraid of Disney not doing. And because these big studios, especially Disney, are incredibly risk averse. They want to do the safe thing. They want to do the thing that they know is going to be a surefire. But you can't. First of all, the surefire thing is not a surefire thing. If it's not interesting, and then people are like, meh.
It's like 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I can't really remember what happened.
Exactly.
They just
Because they went too safe. They were like, please like us. And it's like, no.
There wasn't really anything good about the
It's
storytelling.
empty.
It's like 3 whole movies, and it was like, what happened?
Why did that
I
need to
don't know.
exist? It didn't. Yeah.
Han died.
Why did the Emperor come back? Why?
Yeah, so that's basically it. It's just like there's definitely saturation of the market, and like
Yeah.
if I see one more Spider-Man thing, I'm done.
That's what I'm saying.
I've been done. I was good with Tobey Maguire. I was kind of done. Like done.
Right.
Since then, like that's enough Spider-Man. There was enough, and they just
Fair
keep
enough.
doing Spider-Man, and it's not
That's
that
fair.
interesting for that much more
But-
Spider-Man. So now we sort of have a parallel in the Star Wars,
Yeah.
and it's not one character.
But the
And one
difference is,
storyline over and over and over.
though,
It's-
neither of us are really like Marvel fans. Like we're not
Yeah.
really. Like I'm kind of a casual Marvel fan. My big thing is X-Men. I really want Kevin Feige and the Marvel Universe to redo X-Men and do it properly and build out the characters better.
Yeah, maybe talk
But
about that.
other than that, I'm not really into a lot of the comics and stuff like that.
But with Star
But
Wars,
with Star Wars,
I
it's
do
a
think,
fandom we've kind of grown up with, and it's been
Yeah,
ebbs and
right.
flows of like there's moments where I've been like really excited, really ready, and then there's other moments where I'm like I'm sick of Star Wars now. I want something new. And then my cousins gift me a Darth Vader gumball machine, and I'm like, I hate you.
Sorry, cousin.
Sorry, I love you guys. Seriously, I love you guys, but sometimes your gift giving skills are not the best. But it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
But
Sing
I say
parts.
all that to say, speaking for myself, I've been in the Star Wars fandom for so long that I've literally seen and experienced it all. It's like an old friend from high school who you've had ups and downs with, who you've had times where you're like on top of the world, and times when you like have a fight and like you break up and you're like, I'm over you, and you take your toys back and all that, but then like but then like
you're like,
cool
no,
with each other. So,
I
like,
love you. Maybe I live for you.
so yeah, it's like that. It's that old friend you've been with for years, and you know them very well. Your history is so long; it's really hard to sum it up in a couple hour long podcast. But you do your best. But that's really it for me. Is like I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of Star Wars, but I'm also like, do something different, take some chances, build the universe a little bit. Like, I hope they're looking at the fan response, because I know Andor wasn't like the highest rated series, I think, like, but it still is like universally praised across the board, because it's like, this is what you guys need to do something, just good storytelling, good interesting storytelling. You got to have that first and foremost, because
listen to him.
Because you can cast, and you can do things like build out the universe as far as like telling more people's, being more inclusive and telling more people's stories. I love that too. Like, I have no problem with you casting, black people and gay people and Asian people, everybody across the board, making this diverse inclusion of stories. But and this goes across the board. But if that's where your creative idea ends, is casting diverse people, and we're just going to do the same old story again, but we're just casting a diverse cast, you have nothing. That's not a story. You still need to tell a good story at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's where I'm at with that. Any other thoughts on Star Wars franchise?
Nope.
That said, we're looking forward to Ahsoka in August. Hopefully it'll be good.
We'll be watching.
Hoping it'll be good. But yeah, so that is our kind of overarching thoughts on Star Wars. Again, guys, chime in the comments. We love your thoughts on all of this. We love chatting these things with you.